The fifth time Ryan asked about the company's property holdings, something in my gut twisted. I was standing in my own office, looking at this man who'd been dating my son Michael for 8 months, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being sized up like livestock at an auction. "Just curious, James," Ryan said with that practiced smile of his. "You mentioned the Denver facility. Do you own that building outright, or is there a mortgage?" I set down my coffee. "We own it. Why do you ask?" "Oh, just trying to understand the full picture of Morrison and Sons construction. Mike and I have been talking about expansion opportunities, and I want to make sure we're maximizing asset value." That was the thing about Ryan Blackwood. Everything he said sounded reasonable, intelligent even. He was a venture capitalist, or so he claimed. Showed up at one of our job sites 8 months ago. Struck up a conversation with Michael about sustainable building practices, and within weeks they were meeting twice a week to discuss growth strategies. At first, I was pleased. My son was 30 years old, sharp as a tack, and ready to take over the business I'd spent 40 years building. If he wanted to explore expansion with outside capital, who was I to stand in the way? I was 65, looking forward to retirement, spending more time fishing and less time worrying about payroll. But this was the 5th time Ryan had steered conversation toward our assets. The building in Denver, the equipment yard in Aurora, the land we owned in Colorado Springs. Each time I'd answered honestly because I had nothing to hide. But each time, that knot in my stomach pulled tighter. "I'll send you our portfolio," I told Ryan. "Everything's in the books anyway." "Appreciate that," he said, already moving toward the door.
Mike's lucky to have a father who built something this solid. Most guys your age, they're barely holding on. But you've got real wealth here. After he left, I sat alone in my office, staring at the framed photo on my desk. Me and Michael at his college graduation, both of us grinning, his arm around my shoulders. His mother had died when he was 16, and we'd gotten through it together. Built this company together. I'd always told him, trust your instincts, read the fine print, and never let anyone pressure you into a deal. So why was I feeling pressured now? 2 weeks later, Michael came to me with Ryan's proposal. We were sitting in the conference room, and he spread the documents across the table like he was dealing cards. "Dad, this could change everything for us. Ryan's firm wants to invest $2 million in expansion. We'd open 3 new offices across the Front Range, hire 50 more workers, take on commercial projects we've never had the capital for." I picked up the contract. 20 pages of dense legal language. "What's the catch?" "No catch. We restructure the company into a holding structure. Morrison and Sons becomes a subsidiary of a new entity that Ryan's firm controls. But we keep operational control. We're still running the show day to day." "Operational control," I repeated slowly. "But who owns the company?" Michael shifted in his chair. "Technically, the holding company would own 51%, but, Dad, that's standard for this kind of investment. They need majority stake to protect their capital." "So we'd own 49% of the company I built for 40 years. "You'd own 49% of a company worth 3 times as much," Michael countered. "Ryan's got connections. He's already lined up contracts with 2 major developers. This is our shot to go from regional to statewide." I looked at my son, saw the excitement in his eyes, the same fire I'd had when I started this business in 1980, with nothing but a pickup truck and a tool belt. How could I be the one to kill his dream? "Let me read through this," I said. "Give me a few days." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Ryan's questions, about the way he'd asked them. There was something almost systematic about it.
like he was following a script. At 2 in the morning, I got out of bed and opened my laptop. Started searching. Ryan Blackwood Venture Capital, Denver. Nothing. Blackwood Capital Partners. The website looked professional enough. Clean design, stock photos of office buildings, vague language about strategic partnerships and sustainable growth. But there were no case studies, no portfolio companies listed, no team photos except Ryan himself. I dug deeper, searched for articles, press releases, anything that mentioned Blackwood Capital Partners. Found one mention in a small business journal from 6 months ago, but when I clicked the link, it went to a dead page. By dawn, I'd made a decision. I called my attorney, Paul Chen, who'd been handling Morrison & Sons legal work for 15 years. Paul, I need you to do something for me, quietly. Don't tell Michael. 3 days later, Paul called me back. James, we need to meet, not at your office. We met at a coffee shop in Littleton, far from any of our usual haunts. Paul looked like he hadn't slept well either. I had a forensic accountant look into Blackwood Capital Partners, he said, sliding a folder across the table. It's a shell company. Incorporated 8 months ago in Delaware. No actual assets, no real office. The address listed is a UPS store. My hands went cold. What about Ryan Blackwood? That's not his real name. It's Ryan Morrison. No relation to you, just a coincidence. Or maybe not a coincidence at all. Maybe he chose it deliberately. Who is he? Paul opened the folder. Inside were photographs, news articles, court documents. He's a con artist who targets family businesses during succession transitions. When fathers are handing companies over to their children. He's done this 4 times before that we can confirm. I stared at the first photo. A newspaper article from Santa Fe. Martinez Winery files for bankruptcy after investment scam. Roberto Martinez was 63, Paul explained. Ready to retire. His daughter, Isabella, was taking over the family winery. Ryan approached them as a venture capitalist, promising expansion into new markets. Got them to restructure, take out loans using the winery as collateral. Within 6 months, the loans were in default, and Ryan's shell company seized ownership. Sold everything off, piece by piece. The Martinez family lost 3 generations of work. My throat was tight. How much? They lost everything. $3.2 million. The next article was from San Jose, Chen Technologies. Dr. Timothy Chen had built a successful software consulting firm, was passing it to his son David. Ryan had approached them with the same pitch. They'd lost $5 million. Then Rodriguez Construction in Phoenix, $2 million gone. Then Williams Logistics in Salt Lake City, $4 million. Jesus Christ, I whispered. That's over $14 million. And those are just the ones we found, Paul said. There could be others. The pattern is always the same. He targets successful family businesses in the West, approaches during transition periods, gains trust through the child because fathers always want to believe their kids are smart enough to make good decisions. He's patient, builds relationships over months. Then he strikes with a contract that seems reasonable, but has buried clauses that transfer ownership when the business inevitably can't meet the accelerated loan obligations he's built in. I looked at the photo of Ryan Morrison. Same face I'd been seeing around my office for 8 months. Same practiced smile. Same predator's eyes I'd somehow missed. Where is he now? I asked. If the patent holds, he's close to closing. Has your son already proposed restructuring? Michael came to me 3 days ago. Paul's face went grim. Then we're running out of time. Once those papers are signed, it becomes nearly impossible to unwind. The contracts are airtight. He's got lawyers,
probably accomplices. This is organized crime, James. This is what he does for a living. I sat back in my chair, trying to process it all. My son was about to hand our company over to a professional thief. And if I told him right now, would he even believe me? Michael was smart, ambitious, eager. He'd probably think I was just a paranoid old man afraid of change. "What do I do?" I asked. Paul closed the folder. "I've already contacted the FBI. There's an agent, Sarah Martinez."
Yes, that Martinez, Roberto's daughter. She's been tracking Ryan for 3 years. They've got a file on him, but they need evidence of active fraud to make an arrest. If Michael signs those papers and transfers money, that's when they can move. You want me to let my son walk into a trap? I want us to set a trap, Paul corrected. With you and Michael both fully aware. But we have to be smart about this. If Ryan suspects anything, he'll disappear. He's done it before. That night, I asked Michael to come over to my house, just the two of us, no Ryan, no lawyers. We sat on my back deck, the same deck where I'd taught him how to handle a hammer when he was 8 years old. "Dad, if this is about the expansion deal, just listen to me for a minute," I said. "Before you do, I need to tell you something about how I built this company." I told him about the early days, the contractors who'd tried to cheat me, the developers who'd made big promises and bigger threats, the times I'd almost lost everything because I trusted the wrong person. "The most important lesson I ever learned," I said, "was this. Trust people, but verify everything. Especially when someone's asking you to bet the farm." Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You don't trust Ryan." "I don't know Ryan, and neither do you. 8 months isn't long enough to really know someone, especially when there's millions of dollars on the line." "So what are you saying?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the articles Paul had found. Watched my son's face change as he read about the Martinez Winery, Chen Technologies, Rodriguez Construction, Williams Logistics. "That's not," Michael started, then stopped, scrolled back up, looked at the photo. "That's Ryan." "That's someone using the name Ryan Blackwood. His real name is Ryan Morrison. He's a professional con artist, and he's done this 4 times before. We're number 5. Michael stood up, started pacing. No, this doesn't make sense. He's been to our job sites. He knows the business. He's introduced me to his partners." "Accomplices," I said. "The consultants he brought in. They're part of his crew. Look at the billing. They're charging us $10,000 a week for work that any junior accountant could do." My son stopped pacing, sat back down, put his head in his hands. "I'm an idiot." "You're trusting. There's a difference. And he's a professional. This is what he does." "So what do we do? Call the cops?" "Already done. The FBI has a case file on him. But they need evidence of active fraud to arrest him. Which means we need to let him think he's winning." Michael looked up at me. "You want to let him think we're signing the deal?" "I want us to set a trap, with the FBI ready to move the moment he commits fraud. But I need you to play along. Can you do that?" I watched my son think it through, saw the anger, the embarrassment, the determination. Finally, he nodded. Yeah, I can do that. What's the plan?" Over the next 2 weeks, Michael played his role perfectly, acted eager, asked Ryan to accelerate the timeline, pushed for the final signing. Meanwhile, Paul coordinated with FBI agent Sarah Martinez and her team. They'd done their homework too. Tracked down all 4 previous families Ryan had scammed. Roberto Martinez and his daughter Isabella, Timothy and David Chen, Carlos Rodriguez, Patricia Williams, and her son Marcus. All of them willing to testify, all of them angry, all of them waiting for justice. We set the signing for a Friday afternoon at Paul's office. Ryan brought two of his partners, the consultants he'd been billing us thousands a week for. Michael and I sat on one side of the conference table. They sat on the other. Paul had the contracts ready, stacks of documents that would transfer Morrison & Sons into Ryan's control. "Gentlemen," Ryan said, all smiles, "this is an exciting day, the beginning of a new era for Morrison & Sons."
Before we sign, I said, reaching into my briefcase, I have something I'd like everyone to review. I pulled out a folder, set it on the table, opened it to reveal the newspaper article about Martinez Winery. Ryan's smile didn't falter. "I'm not sure what this is." "This is Roberto Martinez," I said. "He built a winery in Santa Fe over 3 generations. Then, someone calling himself Ryan Blackwood convinced his daughter to restructure the business. 6 months later, they'd lost everything. $3.2 million. I laid out the next article. Chen Technologies, San Jose, $5 million. Then the next. Rodriguez Construction, Phoenix, $2 million. And the last. Williams Logistics, Salt Lake City, $4 million. Ryan was standing now, backing toward the door. His two accomplices were looking at each other, confused. "I don't know what you think this proves," Ryan said.
"This is clearly a misunderstanding." The conference room door opened. FBI agent Sarah Martinez walked in, followed by 3 other agents in windbreakers marked FBI. Behind them, I saw faces I recognized from the articles. Roberto Martinez, Timothy Chen, Carlos Rodriguez, Patricia Williams, and her son Marcus. "Ryan Morrison," Agent Martinez said, pulling out handcuffs. "You're under arrest for wire fraud, racketeering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and organized criminal activity. You have the right to remain silent." Ryan's face went white. He looked at Michael, as if expecting my son to defend him. Michael just stared back, stone-faced. "You set me up," Ryan said. "No," I replied. "You set yourself up when you tried to steal my life's work. We just made sure you got caught this time." The 2 accomplices were arrested too. As the agents led them out, Roberto Martinez stepped forward. He was in his 70s now, older than me, his face weathered by sun and sorrow.
"Thank you," he said, shaking my hand. "You don't know what this means. To see him finally pay." "I know exactly what it means," I told him. "Because you saved my family from learning it the hard way." After everyone left, it was just me, Michael, and Paul in the conference room. The contracts still sat on the table, unsigned and worthless. "I'm sorry, Dad," Michael said quietly. "I nearly lost everything you built." "You didn't lose anything. You learned something. There's a difference." "I should have seen it. The red flags, the questions, the way he always steered conversation back to assets." "He's a professional," I said. "He's practiced. This is what he does for a living, and he's good at it. But you know what made the difference? You listened when I raised concerns. You didn't dismiss me as a paranoid old man. You trusted our relationship more than you trusted 8 months with a stranger." Paul gathered up the contracts. "The FBI thinks they can recover some assets from the previous victims. Ryan had offshore accounts, property purchased under shell companies. It won't be everything, but it's something."
"What about Morrison & Sons?" Michael asked. I looked at my son.
"What about it?"
"Do you still want to retire? Hand it over to me?"
"More than ever." I said. "But we're doing it my way. No venture capitalists, no outside investors, no restructuring. Just you and me, sitting down with Paul, transferring ownership the right way. The boring, safe, legal way." Michael laughed, and it was the first real laugh I'd heard from him in 2 weeks. "The boring way sounds pretty good right now." We left the office together as the sun was setting over Denver. The mountains were purple in the distance, the same mountains I'd looked at every day for 40 years while building something real, something solid, something worth protecting. "Dad," Michael said as we reached our cars, "how did you know? Really?"
What made you suspicious when everything seemed so legitimate? I thought about it, about the 5 questions, about the knot in my gut, about 40 years of experience reading people, spotting angles, sensing danger. Your mother used to say I had a 6th sense for trouble. But it's not magic. It's pattern recognition. Ryan asked about our assets 5 times in 5 different ways. Each time, I answered honestly because I thought he was just curious. But by the 5th time, I realized he wasn't asking to learn. He was asking to calculate, to assess value, to figure out exactly how much he could take. 5 times, Michael repeated. That's all it took. That's all it took. Because after 40 years in business, you learn that people who truly want to help you don't need to ask the same question 5 times. They're not measuring. They're not calculating. They're just helping. We stood there in the parking lot, father and son, both of us older and wiser than we'd been that morning. "I love you, Dad," Michael said. "I love you too, son. Now let's go home. I'll teach you how to read contracts the way I should have from the beginning. Line by line, word by word. Boring and safe." "Boring and safe," Michael agreed. As I drove home that night, I thought about the 4 families Ryan had destroyed before us, about how close we'd come to being the 5th, about how many other Ryans were out there right now, circling other families, asking their innocent questions, building their patient traps. But I also thought about this. When someone tries to take what you've built, you have 2 choices. You can be a victim, or you can be a witness. We chose to be witnesses. And in doing so, we'd helped 4 other families get justice, stopped one criminal from destroying more lives, and taught my son a lesson worth more than any expansion deal. Trust your gut. Read the fine print. Protect what matters. And never, ever let someone pressure you into betting everything on their promise of more. Because sometimes, the most valuable thing you can build isn't a bigger company. It's the wisdom to know when someone's trying to steal the company you've already got. The next week, Michael and I did sign papers, just the 2 of us, with Paul as witness. I transferred ownership of Morrison & Sons Construction to my son, clean and simple. No shell companies or holding structures or venture capital. Just a father handing his life's work to his son, the way it should be. Ryan Morrison went to trial 6 months later. The FBI built a case using evidence from all 5 families. He was convicted on 14 counts of fraud and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. His accomplices got 10 years each. The 4 previous families recovered about 40% of what they'd lost. Not everything, but enough to rebuild.
Roberto Martinez reopened his winery on a smaller scale. Timothy Chen started a new consulting firm with his son. Carlos Rodriguez went back to construction, older but not broken. Patricia Williams got her logistics company back on its feet. As for Morrison & Sons, we're doing fine. Michael's running things now, making smart decisions, asking good questions, and trusting his instincts. We didn't expand to 3 new cities. We didn't hire 50 new workers. We didn't chase Ryan's promises of exponential growth. Instead, we grew the old-fashioned way. Slow, steady, sustainable. Built on relationships instead of leverage. On reputation instead of restructuring. On 40 years of foundation instead of 8 months of fantasy.
And every time Michael interviews a potential business partner, every time someone approaches with an opportunity that sounds too good to be true, he asks himself the same question I taught him to ask. Why are they really here? Because in business, just like in life, the people who truly want to build something with you don't spend their time measuring what you've already built. They spend their time rolling up their sleeves and helping you build more. And if someone asks about your assets 5 times, they're not looking to invest. They're looking to extract. And that's when you call your lawyer, trust your gut, and remember that the most valuable thing you own isn't the company in your name. It's the wisdom to know when someone's trying to take it away.